The classroom was silent except for a few quiet snickers spreading across the room. A nervous boy stood near the front desk, clutching a thin notebook tightly. His teacher leaned back in her chair, arms crossed confidently, smiling with disbelief. Then she said something that made the entire class burst into louder laughter. "If you pass this impossible test," she mocked loudly, "I'll tear my diploma apart." Everyone thought the challenge was a cruel joke meant to embarrass him. But the boy simply nodded calmly, his eyes focused with unusual determination. Something about his quiet confidence made a few students suddenly stop laughing. They sensed this moment might become something no one expected at all. And what happened next would completely change how that classroom saw him forever. Now let me tell you something important, because stories like this rarely start grand. This boy wasn't famous, popular, or known for being particularly brilliant. Most classmates saw him as quiet, shy, and always sitting alone near windows. Teachers often assumed he struggled simply because he rarely spoke during lessons. But sometimes silence hides storms of intelligence waiting for the perfect moment. And that morning, the storm was quietly gathering inside that small classroom. The teacher believed she had already judged him correctly long ago. She believed the challenge would prove what she already thought about him. But she had no idea that the boy had been preparing quietly for months. And the test she offered might become the biggest mistake she ever made. The test itself was known around the school as nearly impossible. Even the smartest students had struggled with its twisted logic and tricky questions. It combined mathematics, puzzles, memory challenges, and unexpected reasoning traps. Many older students had failed when the same challenge appeared years before. The teacher placed the paper on the desk with dramatic confidence. Her smile suggested she expected the result before the test even began. "Go ahead," she said loudly, making sure everyone in the class listened carefully. "If you finish this correctly, I will rip my diploma immediately." The room erupted with whispers, laughter, and skeptical shaking heads everywhere. But the boy simply picked up the paper and quietly began reading every question. At first, the class continued joking and whispering while he worked silently. Some students watched him curiously, expecting him to give up quickly. But something strange began happening within only a few minutes. The boy's pencil moved across the paper faster than anyone expected. Not rushed, not careless, but with calm, steady precision and confidence. His expression showed deep focus, like someone solving a familiar puzzle. The laughter slowly faded as students noticed how quickly he worked. Even the teacher leaned forward slightly, curiosity replacing her earlier amusement. She had expected confusion, hesitation, maybe even frustration from the quiet boy. Instead, she saw someone solving the questions with almost frightening ease. Minutes passed, and the classroom atmosphere completely changed from playful to tense. Students began leaning forward, trying to see what he was writing. Some whispered that maybe he had secretly seen the questions before. Others wondered if he was simply guessing and writing random answers confidently. But when the teacher quietly walked behind him, something shocked her deeply. Every answer was written carefully with clear logical steps explaining the reasoning. Not only were the answers precise, but the explanations were astonishingly advanced. It looked less like a student solving a test, and more like a mathematician thinking. Her confident smile slowly disappeared, replaced by genuine disbelief and curiosity. For the first time that day, the teacher realized she might have misjudged him. The boy finally placed his pencil down and gently pushed the paper forward. "I think I'm finished," he said softly, barely louder than a whisper. The classroom erupted with confused murmurs and nervous anticipation everywhere. The teacher slowly picked up the paper and began reviewing the answers carefully. At first she checked quickly, expecting to find obvious mistakes immediately. But question after question, the solutions were not only correct but brilliant. Some answers even included shortcuts and methods she had never taught before. Her eyes widened as she turned each page with growing astonishment. Students watched her face change from confidence to shock within seconds. And suddenly, the room became completely silent again. The teacher sat down slowly, staring at the paper like it was unbelievable evidence. She checked the answers again, this time even more carefully and thoughtfully. Every calculation matched perfectly with the expected results of the difficult problems. Even the trick questions had been solved with elegant and clever reasoning. Finally she looked up at the boy, her voice noticeably quieter now. "Where did you learn to solve problems like this?" she asked carefully. The boy shrugged slightly, almost embarrassed by the sudden attention around him. "I just like solving puzzles and reading advanced math books at home," he replied calmly. The class gasped softly as the truth began sinking in slowly. The quiet boy everyone underestimated had just passed the impossible test. Now remember the bold promise the teacher had made earlier with confidence. "If you pass, I'll tear my diploma," she had declared while laughing loudly. Every student remembered those words clearly echoing through the classroom. The teacher glanced toward the framed diploma hanging proudly on the wall. For a moment, she seemed uncertain how to respond to her own challenge. But something admirable happened that no one expected in that tense moment. She stood up slowly, walked toward the wall, and removed the diploma carefully. The class watched with wide eyes, realizing she intended to keep her promise. Instead of tearing it angrily, she held it respectfully for everyone to see. Then she turned back toward the boy with a completely different expression. "I made a promise," she said quietly, holding the diploma carefully in both hands. "But today you taught me something more valuable than this piece of paper." The classroom listened closely, sensing this moment carried an important lesson. "I laughed because I believed I already knew your limits," she admitted honestly. "And today you proved how dangerous assumptions can be in education." She looked around the classroom, making sure every student understood her words. Talent doesn't always speak loudly or demand attention from others. Sometimes the brightest minds sit quietly, waiting for someone to notice. The boy looked down shyly as the class slowly began applauding him. But the teacher still held the diploma, thinking carefully about what to do next. Instead of tearing it completely, she gently folded the diploma in half. "This diploma represents years of study, effort, and responsibility as a teacher. But if I forget to believe in every student, it means nothing anyway." She unfolded it again and placed it carefully back into the frame. "Today I learned that teachers must also keep learning every single day." The students nodded quietly, realizing they had witnessed something truly rare. The teacher then turned toward the boy with genuine admiration in her eyes. "You didn't just pass the test," she said warmly with a proud smile. "You reminded all of us that brilliance can appear where we least expect." And that lesson would remain with everyone in that classroom forever. After that day, the boy was no longer invisible in school corridors. Students who once laughed now asked him questions about solving difficult puzzles. Teachers began encouraging him to join advanced competitions and academic programs. But surprisingly, he stayed the same quiet, humble person everyone first knew. He still preferred sitting near windows and solving problems peacefully alone. The difference was that people finally saw the extraordinary mind behind the silence. And the teacher who once laughed became his biggest supporter and mentor. Sometimes the greatest discoveries are not about knowledge but about perspective. Because recognizing hidden talent can change a person's future forever. And that classroom learned that lesson in the most unforgettable way. So remember this story whenever someone seems quiet, shy, or underestimated around you. You never know what incredible potential might be hidden beneath silent confidence. Sometimes genius isn't loud, flashy, or constantly trying to prove itself. Sometimes it simply waits patiently until the right moment reveals everything. And when that moment comes, it can completely change how people see the world. If this story surprised you or inspired you even a little today, make sure you support the channel so we can keep sharing stories like this. Hit the subscribe button, leave a like, and tell me your thoughts below. Have you ever seen someone underestimated who later amazed everyone around them? Share your experience in the comments, and I'll see you in the next story.